Now, why in the world, does anybody tune in to watch me eat almonds? I tell you, the internet has too much shit on it. How's everybody doing? Hi. These are good almonds. Do you see what's wrong with them? There's one thing terribly wrong with these almonds. Lightly. Get rid of the lightly. Just make it salted, please. Oh, it's good to see all of you. Drinking wine for the last 3 What are you doing awake? Well, I might be in a different time zone than you. The power of positive thinking. Who wrote that? Remind me. That sounds a little dated now. Do I think Trump can turn it around and still win? I do. I think there's a big shy Trump vote out there. How am I feeling? Yeah, feeling okay. Glad to see all you people. What's my system to sit down and draw? Well, I think I'm just naturally motivated. But my biggest thing is that I do the thinking first thing in the morning. When I'm focused and it's easy and nobody's bothering me yet. So 5 in the morning is a good time to write a comic. But if I want to draw it, I want to be tired and I want to, be brain dead and, there's nothing better to do than just move my hand around and draw things. So I usually work out in the afternoon and try to work out until I'm good and winded and tired. And then I have just the right energy to sit down and do what I need to do. If you've ever seen Cesar Millan, the dog whisperer, and one of his big tricks, the dog whisperer, is that if your dog won't do anything for you and he's crazy and you can't get him to calm down, he just exercises the hell out of the dog, just makes it run and fetch and run and run. And by the end of it, half the time the dog is just, I'll do what you want to do. Yeah, I got all my energy out. Now I have the right energy. So I do the same thing to myself that Cesar Millan does to the dog. I manage my energy by how much I exercise and when. My house, I built some of the features of the Dilbert Ultimate House. So I do have a Christmas tree closet, but I made it too small. So the room it should be in is a really high ceiling, and the closet is in a less high ceiling place, and so it didn't work. Norman Vincent Peale. Well, I would read that. That's right. I would read Norman Vincent Peale's Power of Positive Thinking for historical context, because he was Donald Trump's minister and probably had a big influence on him and the family. But I would guess that you don't need it, but it helps. I would guess that there's a lot better, more modern books that would tell you about influence and persuasion. Do I think Clinton is scared of more WikiLeaks? Of course, she should be. How do I feel about the newfound attention I'm getting? Well, keep in mind, a lot of you don't remember that I was terribly famous 20 years ago. So when comics were a much bigger thing, and Dilbert first burst on the scene, I was doing, several interviews a day sometimes for years. So having a lot of attention is not new to me, so that part is comfortable and easy. But getting attention in a different domain, and one that I have no credibility in, is really interesting. So, it's just good fun for me. I don't think it's ever gonna bang 10 chicks a day back then. I wish. You were never famous. LOL. Well, Dilbert was famous. I think voting for Gary Johnson could be an act of conscience, If you think who it will take more votes away from, I suppose you could do it. Eric Erickson. I suppose you could. There's too many new questions coming in. Where will Dilbert go? Well, Dilbert's on the internet. I already make more on the internet, if you look at all internet sources, reprints plus the website, than I do for the Sunday Dilbert comic. Feel the Johnson. Oh yeah, we were talking about Johnson. I don't think there's a terribly compelling reason to vote for Gary Johnson. He can't win, and your vote probably won't affect the election one way or the other. And even as a sort of a protest vote, I think it's worthless because it's very unlikely you're going to see another election like this where there are two such famously unpopular people running against each other. So even if your vote for Gary Johnson made the Independent Party, or whatever the hell he is, Libertarian Party, if it made Gary Johnson have a historically high vote for a third-party candidate, it just wouldn't mean anything because there's no year like this year. You look like a dirty old man. Is that a special look? Do they have a Can I lick your head? Sure. You have to find me. Gary Dudeweed Bro Johnson. I do wear exclusively t-shirts when I can get away with it. Can I block the trolls? They don't bother me. Hypnotic messages to help you instill positive messages. You think it's a long game to get the third party in? So that was my point, is that it would make sense as a long game if you thought voting for Gary Johnson and getting a historic, big vote for the third party mattered. But it's such a different year. Even if you had a banner year, it's very likely it would go back to wherever it was historically the very next year. All right, fix the lighting a little bit. Oh, much better. I've never heard the Widow Peak hair parting hypothesis. Have I watched someone else's periscopes? Yeah, of course. Choking his chances away? It's hard to know. Do you love us? Of course I do. Did I ever meet Charles Schultz? Yes. Met him a few times, talked to him on the phone a few times. What's on her tongue? I haven't used an actual periscope. No, I'm not a Trump surrogate. Yeah, I think the past week is bad, but if you added all of it up, it's like a hill of beans compared to the things he's already done and the things he'll do in the future. So if you look at any given week, it's certainly true that the mainstream media piled on. So it was a horrendously bad week in terms of Persuasion. Yes, so people on my Twitter feed have collectively and with my help come up with this new slogan that would be persuasively powerful for getting out the alleged secret Trump vote. And how do you reply to being a boring web guy? Anyway, the slogan, if I remembered, is speak softly and vote bigly. So the idea is that there are a lot of people who are the silent, so far non-voting majority that might become the, historically big voting majority fairly soon. And the reason, let me tell you why that's persuasive. And remember, I'm not trying to take sides, but it was too tempting to tweak the saying to see if it could turn into something useful. I probably shouldn't violate the Prime Directive and do something that might change the result, but chances are it won't. So So here's why this is so good. So imagine the saying from Trump supporters, speak softly and vote bigly. All Trump supporters would have to do is just go quiet. Not just Trump, just all of his supporters. Just stop talking. And just think about it. It's something that can easily be done. Just stop talking. And then vote bigly. Just go, and then go and vote your conscience. What's powerful about that is that people like to be joiners. They like to feel that they're part of a team. And as soon as you give people a slogan, that helps that. But the speak softly and vote bigly is something that a lot of people who have so far not talked about their support for Trump probably identify with. Because these are people who are going to vote. They're part of the process. They have an opinion. And they don't give a fuck what you think about their opinion. And they're not even going to tell you. So those people probably like the idea of, the old saying was, speak softly, carry a big stick. But speak softly and vote bigly reminds you of that saying. And so that too makes it sticky, makes it memorable. It connects to something that you probably liked. It creates a team kind of situation. So there's just a ton of persuasion. It's short, it's memorable. It's just got a ton going for it. So speak softly, vote bigly could mobilize the silent Trump support. Talk about Milton Erickson. Well, Milton Erickson was the grandfather or founder of modern hypnosis as we know it. He was also the influence for the hypnotist who trained me. He would be considered the major character in hypnosis in history. Beyond that, it's just the story of what hypnosis is. He was just good at it. I haven't seen Hillary's America yet. I'm Mexican and I'm voting for Trump. Now, let me ask you this question. So you just self-identified as Mexican. I assume, since you're going to vote, you are an American citizen. So when you called yourself Mexican, were you referring to the fact that you were born in Mexico and are now an American citizen, or just that you have Mexican heritage, that maybe somebody in your family lived or was born in Mexico? So if you could answer that question, that would be interesting to the other people here, I think. Under low level, work harder than one high level persuader. Well, yeah, if you have the whole mainstream media on your side, that's hard for anybody to overcome. But if anybody can, I suppose it would be him. Just they have Mexican heritage. Yeah, so I hope you saw this question and answer. Let me repeat it back to you. So one of the viewers said that, called himself Mexican and said that he was going to vote for Trump. I asked if he was Mexican by birth or just by heritage, and apparently he's born in this country. He just has, Mexican heritage. And remember how much trouble Trump got in for referring to Judge Kirill as Mexican. He was using the term in exactly the same way as this self-identified Mexican viewer, someone who has Mexican heritage. But of course, the entire world blew up when Trump said it, because it's just not the way you're supposed to talk, I guess. An American of Mexican descent. Well, that sounds definitely more specific and more accurate, but sometimes you just want to shorten that, don't you? Just kind of find a short way to say that. He said Mexican judge have a bias. Well, if you don't know anything about the world, you believe that there are people who are unbiased. You might even think you're one. If you know a little bit about the world, you probably think other people are biased, but you're not. Oh, you're not. Oh, sometimes, but you can overcome it. If you know a lot about the world, you know that you're just as biased as everybody else, and you don't know it. That's the whole point. It's not bias if you know it. If you know it, you can overcome it. It's bias because you don't know it. That's how it works. So, was the Mexican judge likely to be biased because of his family connections? Is it possible that people are influenced by what their family thinks about them. Now, can you imagine Judge Curiel ruling in favor of Trump and handing him the presidency? How does that go over at the next family reunion? If you think that anybody, any kind of judge, whether he's a Mexican, has Mexican heritage, he's from another country, he's born in America, from Native Americans, he's Lithuanian, he's Albanian, he's Swedish, any fucking one is going to be biased for people who his family are members of, who his family have a strong connection to. So when Trump said Judge Curiel might be biased because of his Mexican heritage, he was saying that water is wet. What he's saying is not debated by anybody who knows anything about the world. What do you think about writing a hypnotic message for me? I wouldn't put it in an operating manual. How do you check your own bias? That's a really good question. Let me talk about that for a minute. So the proposition that I've been putting forth for a long time here, writing about Trump, is that some people are biased and some people can't see their illusions. And part of that, what's wrapped up with that sort of automatically is the notion that somehow I can see these biases, but I have some superpower, I guess, that I can see these biases, but I can't see them in myself. But that's not quite true. Let me tell you more about that. What's more true is it's easier to see someone else's bias. All right? So it's very hard to see your own, but it's not hard at all to see someone else's. Take, for example, it wasn't many years ago that I would hear cigarette smokers say, well, I know what the science says, but I know 10 people who died from smoking, but I know somebody that lived to 90 and smoked every day and drank beer every day, so therefore I'll just do that. Now, when you hear that, that's just complete nonsense, right? And no rational person should ever act that way. And rational people will say that. Smart people who have gone to school and everything, they'll say, yep, I know somebody who was 90 years old and smoked every day, so I'm going to do that too. It's easy to identify in that person that their addiction is talking and not the rational mind, right? But that person can't tell. That's the point. They can't see their own bias. It's just easy to see someone else's. So then the real question is, what biases do I have? Well, the first thing is I've told everybody my biases as clearly as I can, and you can get to evaluate them and see what other ones I have. So in the realm of Trump and Clinton, I'll reiterate my biases and see if that sounds right to you. So I've been writing glowingly about Trump's powers of persuasion, and also recently as today, writing about the Clinton campaign's persuasion game, which at the moment is actually better than Trump's. So if I were biased, I would probably just always say Trump had the best persuasion. But that's just not the case. He had a bad week, and I reported it. Now, I probably do report that he has more good weeks than Clinton in the specific field of persuasion. Right? I'm not evaluating their policies. If I were biased in favor of Trump to get elected because of his policies, I would certainly say something about my support for them, but indeed I don't support either candidate's policies, and I'm not a joiner. When you don't support somebody's policies and you're not part of the club, I'm not a Democrat, I'm not a Republican, that's one way to guarantee that you have less bias than someone who's in the club. That doesn't mean you have no bias. That just means you almost certainly have less bias than someone who identifies as part of a club, right? Those people are going to fight for their views even if they're stupid. All right, so let me self-identify some more biases. If Trump wins, I will be the most high-profile person who had an explanation from day one how this impossible thing could happen. That might be good for me, but it's far more likely that I will be judged by every mistake that Trump makes as president. Now, keep in mind that we've never had a president who doesn't piss off 50% of the country. And I'm talking about really, really, really pissed off. Look at how the Republicans feel about Obama. Look at how the Democrats felt about the last Bush. Right? It's just built into the system. Half of the country is just going to fucking hate whoever wins. Doesn't matter who wins. Half the country is just going to hate him. Now, what's different about Trump getting elected is that he's been identified as literally some kind of Hitler megalomaniac who's, bent on rounding people up and putting them in concentration camps. People are going to identify anybody who seems on his side as part of his horrible scheme. So it would be terribly bad for me for him to get elected because I would probably be killed. And, well, not probably killed, just the risk of me being injured by someone who hates Trump and believes he's actually the next Hitler is pretty fucking high. And that's why I've endorsed Hillary Clinton, because people don't care why you endorse their candidate. They really don't. They just care that you're on the same team. And so purely for personal safety, and as a matter of persuasion, because persuasion is a good tool for personal safety. It's a really good tool. In fact, it's the best one, because the alternatives are what? Killing somebody. So as a persuasion safety procedure, I endorsed Clinton while saying I don't agree with either of the policies. So those are a few reasons why an objective person would say that I have reason to be less biased, because it doesn't really help me necessarily if Trump wins. But at the same time, I've been saying good things about his persuasion. And when Clinton does something good in that realm, which is the thing I'm focusing on, I've also said good things. But it absolutely would be good for me in terms of entertainment value, in terms of just excitement, in terms of other people thinking, hey, that guy got something right. So it'd be good for me all those ways, but I don't think it would be worth the physical risk of having him president and having half of the country blame me for whatever the fuck he does after that. Now, take a Clinton victory. A Clinton victory, by design, her whole program is to try to give you something like what we've been enjoying for the last 8 years, with incremental improvements. That's a pretty strong package, because I've said that Obama will probably be in the top 20% of presidents. I know that's unpopular to say, and if you think that I'm in the bag for Trump, you would have to be very puzzled why I would say that. I've also said that Obama should have been impeached for his views on marijuana clinics for medical marijuana in California. So during the period when he was still being aggressive about closing them down and jailing Californians, it was obvious to me that he was either had been lying to us about his intentions, which I think is a big enough lie that you need to be really concerned, and or somebody such as the alcohol lobby or the prison lobby, or somebody got to him and said, hey, let's keep marijuana illegal, right? Maybe the police lobby, because arresting stoned people is literally the easiest crime you can bust. Nothing's easier than that. So police like it. So I think probably somebody either got to him with campaign contributions or some kind of influence, and I was willing to, on that alone, just that issue alone, I thought he should have been impeached. He has since changed his views. He's loosened up, and that's the right decision. I'm a big proponent of judging people by how they fix their problem and not whether they made a mistake. And the one way he could fix that deeply terrible problem was what he did, changing his views and softening up on it, going after medical marijuana in California. I've also said that Obamacare, as much as you hate it, and as much as it's terrible, and as much as for some people it's a step backwards, some people think it's bad for the economy, but I don't think the studies show that. There's something that you might not have caught that Obama said early on that makes me like his plan. And what he said was, I'll paraphrase, and he said this clearly, and he said this probably more than once, but I heard it. He said that Obamacare was imperfect, but the way to get to perfect is to do something. So he launched imperfectly, and really maybe very imperfectly, we don't know. And he said, I'm going to make it too hard to take this away. Because once people get a taste of it, I don't think either candidate is really talking about giving no health care or moving backwards. Obama did this. He eliminated the possibility that either party could go backwards on health care. All they can really do is fix it. They can make it better, and that was his plan. All right, he said it clearly. Both candidates are falling into his plan. Trump says he'll fix it with in one way. Clinton says she'll fix it in another. Probably neither of them will get what they want. It'll be some Congress-made solution. In the meantime, we've run Obamacare for a few years, and we've tested it. We know what worked. We know what didn't work. And now we fix the stuff that didn't work. Guess what? That was Obama's whole plan. And as far as I can tell, it's not bankrupting the economy. So that's a pretty big accomplishment. Now, it is true that Obama pulling out of the Middle East created a vacuum and probably created ISIS and maybe created a bigger problem. But what was really the alternative, right? If you look at if you look at something in isolation and it didn't work out, you could say, well, that was a bad idea. But smart people don't do that. People don't look at something in isolation and compare it to nothing and then judge whether it was good or not, because nothing is good or bad compared to your imagination, all right? And there is nothing to compare it to, right? He only did one thing, so you can't compare what would have happened if he stayed, right? Chances are it would have, bankrupted us, because that shit's expensive. And chances are we wouldn't have made much headway. They would have just killed more Americans and, would have turned to shit anyway. So, the big mistake probably was getting rid of Saddam. But we don't even know if that was a mistake, because, maybe he would have gotten weapons of mass destruction. Maybe he would have started, annihilating people in death camps. You don't know. In fact, you don't know anything about anything in the future. So when you imagine that you do, you're in crazy town. 400 million to Iran. The whole thing about, I don't know the details of this, right? I saw Newt Gingrich's tweet, I think, that we were giving money to Iran in return for hostages. So you asked me if I'm being unbiased, but here's a good example of being objective. It does make sense when you're talking about common criminals that you don't pay ransom to them, because it encourages more common criminals to kidnap people and demand ransom, right? Common sense. Any law enforcement person will tell you the same thing. But if you're talking about countries like Iran and the United States, it's not a two variable thing. I give you money, you get my hostage. It's probably 50 freaking variables, and money was just one of them. And so if they got close enough to a deal on lots of big things, and the only thing that was left was freeing up some money, free up some money. It's not like Iran is going to go capture more people and demand more money, right? And if they did, that's the point where you say, fuck you, now it's turned into a business. But in any given situation, country to country, paying money for hostages, if it's part of a much larger deal that has to do with, fighting ISIS and nuclear weapons control and probably information sharing and not attacking Israel, there was a lot. There was a lot in that. Chances are 400 million was cheap. Now, the thing is, we don't know. Because again, we don't know what we're comparing it to. What was the alternative? Were you there? All right. Did you get the secret briefings of what was happening? No, you got Newt Gingrich's fucking tweet. That's what you got. All right. That's the knowledge you're working with. That's the knowledge I'm working with. So if you've got an opinion on that, whether that was a bad idea, that is not a rational opinion. It might be a bad idea, but you can't have a rational opinion with the amount of information you have. You have no idea how many variables were in play. They've taken 2 more Americans. Well, you do realize that the response to that, if it's a country-to-country thing, is you take their people, you don't pay them. It wouldn't be hard to get our hands on some Iranians or some, important relatives of Iranians in other countries. So if it turned into, hey, we took your people and we got some money that one time, let's try that again, that's a one and done. The very next thing you do is you go after the family members and important Iranians. I mean, you should. Common sense says you would. I am drinking tap water. Well, we'll see if Trump can break through. Is Hillary healthy? She's at that age where no one is really healthy, and not entirely. And she certainly doesn't have a healthy weight. And I would guess that when you're on the road like that, it's just a really unhealthy lifestyle. Probably that the stress is ridiculous. She probably doesn't sleep. I'd be amazed if she's not under some kind of prescribed pills, probably a number of them. How important is patience to success? Well, it's a trick question, because the real question is, how do you know when to quit? And how do you know when to hang in there? Patience would be easy if you knew it was going to work. Head injury. How do you reach the people who don't respond to obvious persuasion? Well, everybody responds to persuasion, but it's a different 20% who don't respond to any particular type of persuasion. So if you wanted to get 100% of all the people persuaded, you would find what works individually for big groups of them until there were only a few left, and then you would do them individually as well. Do you think Trump is healthy or on pills? You mean because of all of his energy? He puts off a vibe of healthy. I know a lot of people who are on uppers, and it's not really hard to point them out. I'm talking to those with cognitive abilities. Just run them down. Nobody has the cognitive abilities they think they have. So the moist, no, I'm not in California. I am in Hawaii right now. I've not directly talked to any campaigns, no. How does Trump watch so much TV and campaign at the same time? I doubt he does watch much TV. If we're all irrational, what's the point of debate? The point is that we can't help ourselves. We do what we have to do. It's cause and effect. Where do I come from? Broken heart. Why Hawaii? Well, if you live in California, Hawaii is sort of the destination that people aspire to go to. Meeting with Benioff? No. He has a place over here, doesn't he? Screw said this is the worst 2 weeks after convention. Yeah, I think he's right. I did name Godzilla. Did you ever study the classical fallacies? I might have. Is girlfriend there? It's hard to say. Will you write another book? I'm thinking about it. Oh, which reminds me, I have to get back to my publisher who said, would you like to write another book? I was thinking about it, my answer, and I realized I haven't gotten back to him. What was most pivotal in my understanding of persuasion? My class in hypnosis, when I learned to be a hypnotist. Is CNN for Clinton? It looks that way. You could make up your SSB. I don't know if there's a big knockout punch, but we'll see. You're loaded. I'm actually not loaded. And social media, I don't think he's that up on social media. What's your heritage? I'm a bunch of European stuff plus some Native American. Girlfriend is in Sacramento. Oh, the girl reading the book in the photo I sometimes run on my blog to advertise my book is a friend of my stepdaughter's. I don't know where in California or anywhere else you can learn hypnosis. I mean, I would Google it just like you would, and I would look at Yelp, and I would, maybe talk to some people who went there and get a recommendation, but that's all you can do. Are you motivated to write next book? Well, that's a harder question to answer than you think. The only way I can write a book is if it pulls me, meaning that you don't get motivated and then say, I think I'll use my motivation to write a book. I'm sure some people do it that way, but I don't. The way I do it is sometime a book just comes out of me and I can't stop it. That wasn't true of the first few books because someone offered me a contract to write a book and I said, I've never written a book before, but let me try this. And the first one was a #1 bestseller. It was called The Dilbert Principle. And after that, I had more freedom to write what I wanted whenever I wanted. Will you ever reopen comments on the blog? I think I'll keep them closed until after the election. Because the political comments were just garbage. It was just awful people yelling at each other. Could an online hypnosis course work in theory? Almost certainly not. Most influential character? I don't know. Could radical Muslims be persuaded to change their beliefs? Yes, they could. You would have to try a number of things, and one method wouldn't work for every person. But if the United States government decided to do a Manhattan Project-sized effort to persuade radical Islamic terrorists to either not become them or to stop being them, you probably can't stop people from being them if they've already committed, but I think you could stop people from joining up. If it was a big enough project, well-funded, had the right experts, you're doing brain scans on people and testing things to see what works, and you scan the brain again and say, well, let's try something else. I didn't get the part of the brain activated that we wanted. If the government did that, they absolutely could change ISIS, and eliminate them. If you ask me to put a percentage likelihood that a Manhattan-sized project to simply persuade radical terrorists to not be radical terrorists, or not join up anyway, I'd say the odds of that working, if done at that scale, and over, it might take 20 years to actually, extinguish this idea of virus, but the odds of it working with a Manhattan-sized project, sort of a moon landing mentality, assuming this is all secret, by the way, the country doesn't need to know this is going on. The odds of it working, I would put it at 100%, actually. Now, 100% doesn't mean there are no terrorists anywhere. It just means that recruitment becomes so limited that ISIS is just not a thing. It turns into, whatever the Ku Klux Klan turned into. People wearing funny outfits and dancing around together and not doing anything that really affects the real world, except scaring people, I guess. So I think ISIS could be persuaded down to the scary but not really scary level. Oh, if I were moderating the debates, what question would I ask? Oh, I love that question. Let's try that together. If you were moderating the debates, what question would you ask? Right? So if you were moderating the debates, what questions would you ask? And I will disregard any that is either a conspiracy theory or an obvious question or something from the headlines about somebody's gaffe. I'm looking for good stuff. Good stuff. Let's see. Why is Hillary? See, it's hard. Do you like babies? Yeah, everybody's got the jokey one. Will he build the wall? Obvious question. Why did you blame Benghazi? Now, those are all obvious questions. They're all sort of, make you explain for the billionth time the same damn thing everybody's been asking you. What would be a good, no conspiracy theories, only things that have some credibility. What needs to be fixed? That's a good question. What needs to be fixed in Obamacare? Because it would cause them to talk about it in detail. And you know that Trump would have more trouble with that than Clinton. But could Clinton really answer that question in a way that the fact checkers would, the economists would agree the next day? I don't know. But I'll tell you, if I were studying for the debates, I'd get ready for that one. That's a good one. Does trade make us richer? Blah, blah, blah. Ask each of them for one good trait or policy the other has. That sounds like a better idea than it is, because they always answer with the clever answer and not the real one. What were you planning after public service? How can you increase wages? They'll just give bullshit answer to that. Reduce the debt, bullshit answer to that. So anything that they can just give a bullshit answer to is useless. Cannabis legislation is good. That's a good one. I would ask, remember, both candidates are fighting for Bernie's and I guess Gary Johnson's supporters. The question I would most want is about marijuana legalization. Maybe drug legalization more generally, but certainly marijuana. And I would look for them to affirmatively say what they're going to do. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, are the police and the prisons, are those lobbies against legalization of marijuana? Because if they are, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, wouldn't they be in the Clinton camp? Those are the people who want the, I would think, even though Trump is, pro-law and order, I don't know if the police unions and the police organizations are on his side. If somebody, yes, they are against, yes. Yes, they are on the Clinton side, right? Yeah. So under those conditions, I would expect that Trump could get to the left of Clinton on weed, and he could do it while staying within common sense conservative principles. Because if he's not beholden to the same lobbyists that Clinton is, who, maybe they want more people in jail because jails are private businesses now. Maybe the police unions like marijuana being illegal because it's literally the easiest thing they can do is bust stoners. It's the least dangerous thing you could do if you're a cop, I'll bet. Do I think it should be legalized? Yes. So, and think about the news the next day. Let's say there's a debate, Trump and Clinton, and there's all the usual topics, blah, blah, Benghazi, blah, blah, Trump University, blah, blah. We're sick of that stuff. And it's not news anymore. But then imagine that that Trump goes far left and just says, just legalize these drugs, or, or at least, make marijuana legal. I think he's gone so far as to say, it should be illegal for kids, of course. I don't think there's hard evidence that it's bad for kids, but if there's any evidence at all, common sense tells you you don't give that to kids. Pot isn't a national issue. It's very much a national issue. So Trump has said stuff like, who cares, and leave it to the states. But that's not enough of an answer. If he just came out and said, I would encourage the states to legalize it, after it's been tested, that would be the key rational thing. Because at this point we can say several states have legalized. Let's take a look. What happened besides their tax revenue went up, tourism improved, and they sold more candy bars? Given that the marijuana is literally a beneficial medicine for about 45 different problems, you can have a state that's healthier. They're probably going to drink less. So you probably, my guess, this is just a hypothesis, but my guess is that places with legal marijuana have lower rates of drunk driving. Alcohol is poison. Yeah, busing stoners doesn't help with real crime, that's true. TPP, killer issue? No, because nobody understands it. The voters don't understand it enough to really get engaged by it. I think they're both worried about the upcoming debates. I mean, as worried as they get. In Portugal, eventually reduced child use. I wouldn't ask that question because it's just a dick question talking about his property. That's just drawing attention to it for terrorists. How would you establish functioning countries? That's impossible. So I wouldn't ask a question that's impossible. One glass of wine is not good for you. That's just bad science behind that. You can bet that there is a correlation between people who drink mildly and longevity and good health. But I'll tell you that the people who drink mildly are the people who are able to control their impulses in general. And of course they live longer because they're doing all the other stuff right as well. It relaxes you. Yeah, but it's poison. Poison can relax you too. How do you determine what bad science is? Well, imperfectly. When I hear people criticize existing science, I tend to be more biased toward the criticism than the original science. But you have to watch it for a while and see if there's a trend that develops. Who do you see winning debates? It could go either way, but I don't know if this year winning the debates will make the difference. Have you ever had alcohol? Yeah, I always used to drink socially. Have you ever had weed? Only once. I've only been high once. That was in college, my freshman year. It was actually the first day of college, freshman year. But only once because I never stopped. Skeptical people are rarely skeptical. You're right. Were you paranoid? You mean because of weed? There's a detailed answer to that, which is depends who's doing it, how often they've done it, what kind of marijuana they're doing, what situation are they in. So it's a manageable situation, but psychoactive drugs. I've only tried mushrooms. I did that once when I was probably 22 or so. Wine studies showing benefits. I don't believe any of that. Yeah, and by the way, I know that the studies show benefits in the sense that there's a correlation, but a causation, I think, is probably one of the big myths. Ever used persuasion to get out of being arrested or ticket? I never arrested. No, I haven't been in trouble so I guess not. Is coffee bad for you? No, apparently it's good for you. The studies seem to say that. Hand size, no. The media is going to overdrive attack mode. It certainly has. Do you eat bread? Depends where my weight is. If my weight is right where I want it, I eat bread sometimes in the evening because it makes me sleepy. Marijuana. Somebody asked about marijuana and asthma. I'm not a doctor, and so you should not get your medical advice from me. But I can tell you, anecdotally, again, not medical advice, that for some types of asthma, marijuana eliminates it. You probably still need to use some asthma meds, but if the asthma meds aren't getting it done, anecdotally, Not recommending this, because in some cases it could actually kill you if you had the wrong type of asthma, or even, if you had the wrong type of asthma, it would just kill you. What's up with all the sexual harassment stuff all of a sudden? Is it more than usual? Seems like it's always been a lot. Is soda poison? Yes. Pence first cane, irrelevant. Libs are attacking me with a vengeance. Yeah, they are. More so than usual. I also wonder how much of that is organized. I'll put that question to you. If any of you are following me, I know some of you are following me on Twitter, and you've seen some of the attacks, do they look organized, or do they look spontaneous? Because organized means, is there somebody in the Clinton campaign who said, all right, here are, our, 25 enemies who are saying things that are damaging to us. Let's go reduce their credibility. So did it look to you like it was organized? So Yolanda says organized. I think they're organized. Something is looking like bot accounts. Yeah, which would be organized. Very organized. Yeah. Here's the thing, though. You asked me about checking my bias. One of the other ways to check your bias is to simply understand what confirmation bias is and how it works. So when you're under confirmation bias, all the evidence looks like it supports your point of view, even if it doesn't. And so when I asked you, does it look like the opposition on my Twitter account, the people who are coming after me this week, does it look like it's an organized attempt? You're going to see that it's going to look organized even if it isn't. All right? So I agree that it looks organized, but I don't make the next leap to say therefore it is, because confirmation bias would look exactly like this. One smart guy and a bunch of liberal parrots. Yeah, so that would look exactly like organized, right? Am I a pickup artist? No. That would not be my strong point. Being tall helps for being a pickup artist. If you have that, everything else works out. Higher power? No. Yeah, when the talking points are the same. Like when everybody used the word dark after the Republican convention, that was organized. Will Hillary put Obama on the Supreme Court? It's actually a really interesting idea. I don't think I would hate it, really. Like I said, I thought he did a good job as president. I think he'll be in the top 20% of presidents. He's got law background. He's smart enough. It wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Distinction between atheist and non-believer. Atheists are kind of sure there's nothing there. A non-believer just doesn't believe it. All right. So, and then I go further to say that we're probably software. Is Snowden a dirty commie traitor? No, he's a patriot. He's a patriot who's taking an enormous personal risk for the benefit of this country. And I think it's very possible that some future president, and I don't think it would be Trump and probably wouldn't be Clinton, but I think it's possible that some future president will give him a full pardon and bring him back. The real interesting question would be if he ran for office, because I think he would have the credibility to do that someday, because I think history will be kind to him. But the trouble is he spent too much time in Russia, so they're going to have that Manchurian candidate thing, and I don't know if you could ever beat that. Which Dilbert character am I most like? Well, my personality is probably Dogbert, and my social skills are Dilbert, and my nerdy side is Dilbert. If we're software, would it be more logical than emotional? No, because we're probably software copies created by an earlier version of humans. The idea, for those who haven't heard it, is that in our lifetime, probably, or at very least the lifetime after ours, we'll be able to create software simulations that believe they're real. They'll live their little Life as software. They'll be born and die. They'll answer questions. They'll learn things, and eventually, the little software civilization will be just like us, and they will develop their own software simulations within their software simulation, and those software simulations too will believe they're real. So, for every one original species who reaches our level of development, there will be somewhere between 1 and infinite reproductions. And the reproductions will all believe that they're real. So the odds of us being the original is vanishingly small, because that would require us to be in the exact point in time that the original was the original and there were no copies. All right? For that to be true, in our 15 billion year timeline, plus the billions of years that will follow, that would be bigger coincidence than I'm willing to accept. Trump's next move, hard to say. I think just hammering harder. The WikiLeaks stuff might help him. How much would you have to get paid to go to the Olympics in Brazil? I'll give an actual number to that. Some of you know I was an economics major. I've got an MBA from Berkeley. So when people ask me a numbers question, I actually try to answer it. Most people don't do that because they're usually, people don't like answering hypotheticals. But how much would you need to pay me to go to the Olympics, given that I'm rich? $500,000 to stay for a week. Maybe $1 million. Yeah, because it wouldn't make sense to risk my life with the Zika virus, and I would frickin' hate going to the Olympics. I mean, the Olympics is the most boring thing I've ever seen in my life. I don't know why anybody watches the Olympics. Plus, it's a human tragedy that they try to dress up as something inspirational. And if you look at the Olympics, for every person that wins, or maybe the top 3 that win, okay, they're kind of happy, but really the bronze isn't that happy, and the silver is just always gonna be in their craw. But all the other people, all the losers, probably spent their childhood and all their life developing this skill of throwing a spear, or jumping over objects really fast, or shooting and skiing. Useless shit. Useless shit. They are adding nothing to the world. So while I can appreciate the skill and dedication that goes into becoming an Olympian athlete, I also think you're a dumb fuck if you do it, because you're putting all your chips in one pot. Now, if you happen to be Bruce Jenner, and you're thinking, hey, if I practice, I can actually win this thing, that's not dumb. That's pretty smart. But if you don't know it, and he probably kind of knew it fairly early on, I'm just using one example. But if you don't think you're probably going to win, it's a really bad bet. Entertainers, yeah. What do you make of Trump's advice to sell all your stocks? He's totally right. The stock market is high. I would say the odds of the stock market being substantially lower than it is right now at some point is bordering on 100%. Now, that doesn't mean it will stay low forever, but I would guess that anyone who sold all of their stocks at this point would have an opportunity to buy them back at least 10% cheaper. But we are not a disciplined species. And I don't make any financial recommendations, so certainly don't take this as one. But we're not good at knowing when a top is, and knowing when to sell, and knowing when to buy. And if it went down 10%, what would you do? You wouldn't say, "Great, went down 10%, I'll buy it back." This is why you don't follow this advice. If you were disciplined, but you still have to be lucky, because you're gambling that it's not going to keep going down and stay down. Yeah, timing the market never works. Did you ever buy a new truck? No, I got baited and switched until I gave up. I'm going to blog about this. So my truck buying experience, I I didn't keep count, but I think there were perhaps 20 instances of bait and switch. And I had just sort of made a rule with myself that I wouldn't buy under a condition of bait and switch. And what I mean by that is if I know what features I want and the company makes those features, that's what I want. And if they try to interest me in something that's not that, after I've so clearly explained what I want, that's a bait and switch, right? How was gun shopping? Unsuccessful at that particular shop because it turns out they don't carry handguns. I was misinformed. They only had rifles, and I was looking for something specific in the handgun field. Have to watch for dealer options. Pure profit. What? Gun or bagel? Why do you need a gun? Celebrities need guns. You know, if you're a competent person and you don't have any history of, doing irrational things, and you're willing to take gun safety, and, you live in a place where people can find you, we don't have the same risk profile as, if you're living in the inner city, you might wish that nobody had a gun, because every time there's a gun, there's a likelihood you get caught in the crossfire. But there isn't any crossfire where I live. Where I live, it would only be somebody who had something bad in mind for me. And keep in mind, I get a lot of death threats, and they're not all they're not all joking. How do you identify gold diggers? That's not a relevant question, in the sense that we don't live in a one variable world. Sam Harris has the same problem. Which one? Did you enjoy being on Real Time with Bill Maher? I would say I enjoyed it as an experience. It was on my bucket list, something I always wanted to do. But it takes a lot of mental energy to be up for it, because there's a lot of preparation. There's the travel. There's and while you're doing it, you're not having fun, right? I don't mean being on the show. Being on the show is kind of fun. But that only lasts, my segment was 10 minutes. But for, days before that, you're thinking about what you're going to say. You're talking to the producer, you're booking your flight, you're flying down there, blah, blah, blah. So it's not something you do because it's super fun. It's something you do because you wanted the experience. Sam Harris keeps a gun because of death threats. Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense. Never owned a Ferrari or Porsche. I'm not a big car guy. I've told this story before, but I always lusted after having a big sports car. I thought, hey, if I ever make enough money that I can have a sports car, wouldn't that be awesome? And as soon as I made enough money to afford a sports car, I didn't want one because it no longer had any meaning to me. What do you splurge on? People. Do you like Norm Macdonald? He's funny. Zika in Miami? I'm a little worried. Persuasion. Will Bush be remembered as one of the worst presidents? I think so. I was interviewed on the Art Linkletter show when I was 5. I just winged it. You mean you didn't prepare? I expect all 5-year-olds to prepare. Well, the media is trying as hard as they could. If you judged it by this week, the answer is yes. But no, I was raised as a Methodist. Abe Lincoln, good or bad? That sounds like a racist question or a trick question, because if I say he was bad, then you're going to say, what? You're in favor of slavery? And if I say he's good, all I'm doing is like repeating the brainwashing I got in grade school. Avocados with soy sauce. It's good stuff. Do you like Wes Anderson movies? I do not. I've never cared for any of them. Cheney. Maserati? No. When does media bias start backfiring? I don't think it will. How would Abe Lincoln not be good? I watched a special on Abe Lincoln and the dirty tricks he used to get elected. So things were, I mean, basically he was the master persuader of his time, and he went, oh, the richest person I know personally. Well, how personally? I mean, somebody I've met. I did get to chat with Mark Benioff for a while before I gave a talk to Salesforce. I've met probably, I wouldn't name other names because they're less public. I know quite a few, 100 millionaires and half a billionaires and that sort of thing. My quest for credibility, not so good this week. Did you read Jim Carden, The Smartest Boy on Earth? I did not. Why won't debates matter? I think people have already decided. So unless something huge happens in a debate, which I doubt. Mark Cuban, I've traded some Twitter messages with him, but I would not say that I know him. What did Lincoln do? You mean bad? Oh, what did he do? There was a dirty trick. There was some kind of a... you'd have to watch the special. I think, was it CNN who had a special about the presidents? It had something to do with some primary that he rigged. Is Mark Cuban envious of Donald Trump? Of course. Of course he is. Lotus Notes? I didn't use it. 100% of the public were racist in Lincoln's time. Do you think there was any person who wasn't a racist in Lincoln's time? That wasn't even a thing. Any people I'd like to meet? Well, that's a tough question. They're like celebrities that would be fun to meet, but who cares? There's musicians that I'd love to tell people I met, but just so I could tell people I met them. No, not really. You seem like a Freakonomics kind of guy. I am, very much so. Have I dined with a president? No. I shook hands with Bill Clinton once. I was speaking at an event. I think I was the warm-up act for Bill Clinton, and I stayed on the stage and with the other people on the stage, and he came by and shook hands. But that's as close as I got to a president. I have not met Obama. Some people think Abe Lincoln caused the Civil War. Yeah, he might have. I think you're referring to the fact that freeing the slaves was a war strategy as much as it was anything. But I'm not a historian, so burn your hands. Will the media questioning Trump's mental health? Good question. Android or Apple? You mean a question for the debate? I'm Apple. Favorite car? I don't really have one. Is envy easy for you to spot? It's easy for anybody to spot. Do I buy exclusively American cars? No. Green, grass, money. I don't need a third word, do I? Mountains or oceans? Mountains for looking at, oceans for being in. At least the beach part. Clint Eastwood's comments, well, sort of predictable, not influential. Would I consult for Trump? I've got a job. And I don't know what consulting would mean in this context. Thank you. How do you manage your emotions? Some of that gets to an earlier question. Somebody asked about the so-called moist robot hypothesis. And that hypothesis is that we're not rational creatures, and that we do what our cause and effect causes us to do, most of our thoughts actually come from our body. So when you're tired or hungry, you end up being grumpy. As a system guy, which word to describe your most dominant system? Learning, continuous learning, maybe experimenting. 2 words. I used to do meditation and I used to do yoga, but after I learned self-hypnosis, I didn't need either of those because I can bring myself into a relaxed state quite easily. Yeah, there's 1,000 people here. Do you recommend? I don't know any hypnosis classes I recommend. I'm actively avoiding Hawaiian Islands. Yeah, I've been swimming in the sun all day. If Hillary is watching, I don't know what I'd tell her. Favorite novel? I don't read fiction. So I guess I'd say Harry Potter, because I did read that when it came out. Only the writing is great, but I got tired of the series after a while. Are you a night person? No, I'm a morning person. Trump landslide, I think by end of September you'll see it. Persuade a young person to learn programming. You can't persuade a young person to learn programming. I've seen a lot of young people. I've tried to persuade a lot of young people, but they need to talk themselves into it. And it usually involves some friend that they respect. Maybe they spend some time with an adult they respect who does that programming. And if it's a kid, sometimes you just show how much money they make or how big their house is or the car they drive and say, look, if you do this, if you code, you can have this car. If you do some other kind of job, maybe not. How long does it take to learn hypnosis? Well, to learn the basics, I can't remember. It might have been a 10-week course, twice a week for 2 or 3 hours. It was something like that. So it was a long time ago. How can you learn hypnosis? You have to take a class. So you have to find one. I'm not current to know which one to recommend. Some would rather be truck drivers. Yeah, I mean, if it's what you want. Hobby, not a job. No, it's a job. Sure, I'll teach you some. Oops. Self-help. I don't think there's a self-help book on hypnosis that would be useful. I learned it from a hypnotist. He actually hypnotized me and gave me the suggestion for self-hypnosis, which I reinforced over time. A program that useful during the war. Of course, technology is necessary for war. Signs of a landslide. It'll be in the poll numbers. It's okay to wander in your 20s. You have my permission to wander in your 20s. I'm not a fan of contemporary art. I'm not a big fan of art in general. How did Trump learn persuasion? I don't know. But his minister was Norman Vincent Peale, and he was accused in his time of being a hypnotist. So you do the math. Astrology any less rational than major religions? Well, in a sense, religion is rational because it has worldly benefits. And I suppose I don't think astrology has any worldly benefits other than entertainment. Smoking tonight? Well, I'm in Hawaii. How could I do that? How do you feel about our education system? It's terrible. It's really just torture for children and teaching them to be drug addicts. Basically, that's what the public school does. Your summer vacation was a success. I'm a Gemini. And even though there's nothing to astrology, let me tell you if you think, no date for tonight. Let me see if you think that I fit the Gemini description. So Geminis are verbal, good with words. They tend to be eclectic. They do lots of different things and they hate to stay in their field. Thanks for mentioning New Book. Who's New Book? Could you explain the drug addicts part? Yeah, the public schools now, if you send a kid to a public school, he's going to meet a bunch of people who have drugs. And if he has a cell phone, he can get those drugs. So if you're sending a kid to school, you're just turning them into drug addicts. Now, it's possible some people get through public school without becoming drug addicts, but they tend to be people who just weren't going to be anyway. They just don't see the appeal. They're not trying to be part of the popular crowd. So it's not a 100% thing, but it's probably 70% thing. It's probably why most adults are addicted to one kind of drug or another. Do I feel empathy? I can't say I feel special empathy for politicians in general. Wow for what? I never know what the wow comment is for. If I were 17, would I go to college? I would, because I have the kind of personality that I accumulate knowledge as power. And if you want to get a bunch of knowledge, college is a good place to go. Ever use Adderall? No. Well, I use something like it in college, but I don't use it as an adult. I went to Hartwick College in Oneonta, New York, and then I got my MBA at UC Berkeley Haas School of Business. Favorite food in Hawaii? I don't really like the food in Hawaii. Have you met Peter Thiel? I met him briefly. Gemini, very creative, obviously. Yes, thank you. We are. Trump is crazy. Yeah, a lot of people think he's crazy. Naproxen. You love Hartwick. No poo-poo platter for me. Nah. Too liberal. Never been to New Zealand. Why isn't he reaching out to minorities? Well, it's interesting. I wonder that myself. But keep in mind that Trump's whole sale is that he's not trying to divide people by race. He's saying you're an American, end of story. That's what he's selling. So the minute he says, you're all Americans and you're all equal, but then if he leaves that message and he says, but this group I'm going to treat a little special, you get a little apology, I'm going to defer to you, something like that, it wouldn't be honest. And it's kind of the only thing he has going for him. I mean, his biggest power is that people think he's not lying about how he feels. You know, he's told some whoppers about policies, and he's, but that's a slightly different thing. They're all lying about policies. How in the world are over 1,000 people watching this? If you could give Trump one advice, what would it be? I would make fun. I would do a speech in which I mocked the idea that he's a racist, because he could do that really well, and it would take this form. He would say, or mock the idea that he's unstable and doesn't have his he can't be trusted with the nuclear codes. Either one of them, because I think you could just say, all right, this is my topic for today. It's not going to be a one-liner for an interview. I'm going to tell you why you're thinking about this wrong, and just make the case for America. That's really the whole point. Because I'll tell you, if you're on a basketball team and it's highly diverse, and you start seeing yourself as a team, a lot of your bias, maybe your bias doesn't go away, but your ability to get along with each other goes through the roof because you're on the same team. That seems to matter to people. Likewise, if you're on Team America, that is sort of the answer to not being assholes to each other, to have some sort of pride in the fact that we're Americans. Now, I think Trump could make that case, that we should take some pride in being Americans. And if you're being a dick to your American neighbor, you're not doing it right. It's not hard. If you're being a dick to your neighbor, you're just not doing it right. You're not being a good American. If I need to tell you, don't be a dick because they're browner than you, like now I'm treating you like an idiot and you're a dick. I mean, it's twice as bad. So how about just don't be a dick to your neighbor, all right? How about if somebody comes in and they're qualified for the job, how about hiring them? It's not that hard. How about hiring them? Because guess what? That's good for your business. How hard a thing is that for anybody to figure out? All right. What do I think about Thiel's stance against college for smart people? I think that was more of a communication vehicle. He was trying to make the case that college is overrated, and I think a lot of people agree with him, and I agree with him strongly, in the sense that perhaps half of the people in college should be doing something else. But the half that are in college and should be in college, they really, really need college. It's just that college is so poorly designed that it takes you too long to learn what you need to learn. Is there any upside to Trump hitting out at the military dad? Yeah, there is an upside. The upside is that he made America think long and hard about the role of gender in Islam. And he showed that he's a protector of women, because that was the context of the message. So he wants that message. Now, in terms of everybody getting their panties in a bunch because the media allowed his opponents to stretch that from a comment about the role of gender in Islam, which is a legitimate issue that probably every one of you watching this has, and everyone in the country has probably thought, oh, that's important. We really should look at that. So he made you think about that. And at the same time, he got pilloried by Hillary for disrespecting a dad of a fallen vet, and that's people who live in a one variable world. There was a lot going on. He wasn't just representing his son; he was representing Islam, or a good version of American Islam or modern Islam. And so he commented on what the guy was presenting. He was presenting modern Islam as a, happy, benevolent culture that we should all love and embrace. And by the way, he did a good job of that. Trump very cleverly, and I think accurately, said, "What's up with the wife being quiet?" Trump has more female executives in his company than most or everybody, I think, in his industry. He's been a pioneer about that. He put his daughter up to speak. He put his wife up to speak. So when Trump says, why didn't we hear from the wife? He's got credentials to say that. He absolutely has credentials to ask that question. And it's the right question. It's the media turned that into, my God, he's insulting the armed forces, which couldn't be further from the truth. Does he have more female executives than males? That might be true. Thoughts on vote shaming? Well, I suppose it exists. Who are our soldiers supporting? That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. Does anybody know, has the active military been polled? Or is that even legal? I'm not sure you can poll the active military. I don't know why it'd be illegal, but it's one of those things that sounds like it might be. Why doesn't the media ever critique Islam? They don't want to be killed. Why does anybody else not critique them? There's only one good reason. They don't want to be killed. Hey, you went from Bernie to Trump? Yeah, there'll be a lot of you. I'll tell you why the media is biased. It's not because they want to be biased. The media is biased because they think they're right, meaning that they think there is a side that's right and a side that's wrong. And that thinking is not crazy, because suppose you had an actual Hitler running for office. You kind of want the media to take sides, right? You want them to go a little bit beyond, well, his policies are well thought out. You need them to say, no, you're crazy. It's Hitler. No, get that guy. Now, the fact that they're doing it with Trump is not based on the fact that they just prefer Hillary Clinton's policies, even if they do. It's because they actually think, they have been persuaded to believe that he's dangerous. So I think they're acting out of self-interest. I think they're acting out of a sense of duty to the country. And weirdly, in their own way, they're being the best Americans they can possibly be, because they're trying to save us by, sounding the warning. Look, it's Hitler, he's coming. Where I depart is that I think they are deeply hallucinating the level of danger with Trump. My guess is that he's no more dangerous than anyone would be, and probably less dangerous than Clinton, just because she has a track record of being a little bit militaristic, and she's in the pocket of the military-industrial complex. We assume, right? The incumbents are the people who would be. How much sleep do you think Trump gets? I think he gets more than he tells us. How does media think Trump is dangerous? They think he's dangerous because they believe he'll do bad racial things and ruin the character of this country and ruin our reputation and make North Korea attack us, I guess. Will media become less persuasive as Trump attacks them? Yeah, that's why he does it. He was trying to reduce the credibility of the media from the start, and he did a really good job. I mean, it may not be enough, but it was a really good job. What sort of people who shouldn't go to college? Probably bad students who don't plan to use their college skills in any way. If you lived in the South, would you publicly endorse Trump? Probably not. Same reason. If I lived in Texas, no. No, because, people travel. I travel. People can find me. Just being in a safe part of the world wouldn't be enough. What do you think of the campaign unraveling rumor the media is pushing? You mean the one with the anonymous source? Is that the one? The one that the media is reporting everywhere from their unnamed source who says things are unraveling in the campaign? Do you think they don't have an unnamed source that says the Clinton campaign is a mess? Do you think there's any chance that the media doesn't have a source that says the Clinton campaign is a mess and they hate her fucking guts, right? Because every campaign has that. They all have that. They all have. They always have. They always will. But which one got reported? Yeah, NPR, they hated that their coverage was not tanking his polls. I'll bet they did. How much is planned versus improvised? When you know how to persuade, it just becomes how you talk. So he's prepared so that what looks like improvisation is really just learning how to communicate more effectively. Paul Ryan, stay or go. I don't have a strong opinion either way. Frankly, I don't think it makes any difference. Should all smart people go to college? If they have a desire for it. I mean, I think it improves your odds, no question about it. Are you scared of sharks? Yes, I am. Do you believe the unnamed sources? Yes, I believe the unnamed sources said exactly what was quoted. But I also believe that every campaign has sources that would say the same thing. Just like, keep in mind, you're talking to the Dilbert guy, right? I literally write a comic book, or a comic about, I just forgot what I did for a living there for a minute. I literally write a comic about organizations and how disgruntled people are in organizations. There aren't any good ones. So there's somebody in the Clinton campaign, somebody who got fired, somebody whose idea wasn't used, somebody who just doesn't, had a bad day, somebody who just complains all the time. If you find them, they'll tell you her campaign's in disarray. She's listening to the wrong people. She swore at an intern. It's probably all true. Or, some version of it is probably true for every candidate. I don't drink alcohol at all. Alcohol is poison. We've been over that. Yeah, full scholarship. That would certainly change the equation. He's not considered glib or articulate. Well, that's also what makes him persuasive. He keeps things simple and persuasive, and quotable and memorable. Coffee is poison. No, coffee is life itself. Have I ever gotten drunk? Of course. In my past. Do Hillary's looks affect her negatively? To the same degree that Trump's looks affect him negatively. And the answer is yes. I mean, people's looks are terribly important. But you have two candidates who are not going to win a beauty contest. There's no John Kennedy running this time. Will Obama go all in to help Hillary? I'll tell you, Obama's having a hard time selling her. I hear him choking up a little, vomit every time he talks, because lots of times he has to talk in terms of things like, preparation. She does her homework. She's very prepared. She sure knows her stuff. It's a little bit like saying the fat girl has a good personality. I know that's offensive, but, get over it. It just seems that Obama's praise for Clinton is just a little bit understated, if you know what I mean. Yes, I do get depressed sometimes. Everybody does. Do you think the stutter is actually a tell? What stutter? Oh, his stutter? It's just a tell that he's thinking. That's all. For initial skill. The ROI for an additional skill depends on the skill and how it mixes with the skills that you already have and what you want to do with it. Yeah, I think Trump's going to win in a landslide. I do cardio, yes. Oh, I'll define a tell for you. So, in the usual way it's used is in card games. If somebody plays poker and every time they've got a good hand, if they do something with their face like that, and after you notice that, every time he has a good hand, he goes, that's called a tell. So it's an action that's telling you something that the person didn't mean to tell. So in the thanks, and you look great for a tiny little icon that I can't really see. Penis Cabana, good comment. If media attacks are tanking, how can he be landslide? Well, that's the fun part. I think that there probably is more support for Trump than polls are picking up. How can he overcome spending? With free media, of course, and good persuasion. I think people come on here just to get blocked. Do you think the polls are rigged? Well, there are a lot of people saying that Democrats are oversampled and independents are undersampled. Independents presumably 370 EV plus. Oh, I was defining landslide in terms of the popular vote. So how that played out in terms of the Electoral College, I intentionally don't get into the arcane details of the Electoral College, but he could have a 65%. He could get 65% of the vote. Thought of moving a movie? Yes, we tried a few times, but it's hard to get a movie done. Does it bother you that only a few states depend? Yeah, it does bother me. Yeah, Reuters retooled their method to get the result that they wanted. Trump tells his kids that being glib is a strength. I believe it is. People judge glib people to be intelligent. What if he wins 52-48? Well, then I would be wrong about the landslide. No, I don't do any programming now. I wish I did. It was fun. Every online poll has Trump up bigly. Every online poll. But that's online, right? No, I never procrastinated. I was actually super early for everything. Still am. What if he wins 55-45? Well, people would call that a landslide. Do you expect Trump to overcome his current persuasion losing streak? Yes. I mean, there have been up and down weeks for each of the candidates, so it would be crazy to assume that they don't have more up and down. I don't know that the polls are rigged, except to the extent that they may be selecting their sample in an irrational way. Surprised how Democratic side the media is? Yeah, actually I am. I've never seen it like this before. This is the most biased I've ever seen the media. But keep in mind, as I was talking earlier, that bias could also be confirmation bias on my part. I might just see them as biased because I've been writing about Trump too much. Split who wins? That throws it to the... Who's that throw to? The speaker? Calvin Hobbes fan? I was. Manafort's, yeah, he seems to be knowledgeable in persuasion. C.S. Lewis, no. I tried reading some of C.S. Lewis, but he's a terrible thinker that people think is a really good thinker. So I guess he's a good persuader, but I'm maybe a little more practiced at looking through bullshit than other people are. Yeah, they couldn't break him. That's funny. Silicon Valley fan? No, I've seen it. A couple were funny, but I didn't feel inspired to keep watching it. His fiction is good. How likely for Hillary to drop out? Well, it's not unlikely if it's a health problem. Keep in mind that if either Bill or Hillary have a health problem, Hillary would drop out. Because if he had a year left to live or something, people would hate her for being unavailable. Am I a Mike Judge fan? No. When will the Coops drop the next wave? Beats me. Free you. Do you need to be free? People who come to yell. FDR, those were different times. You'll tell her to do it for the comeback kid. You're right. If Bill Clinton says, you must run for the country, forget about me, that could actually work. The Inquirer says Bill Clinton has HIV. Oh, Inquirer, what won't you say? That seems unlikely. Yeah, people are batshit crazy all the time. That's the trick. We don't know it because we're not talking about the same thing at the same time until it gets to election time. And then as soon as it does, people think, oh my God. Will I write a book? Probably not. All right, I'm going to sign off, do something else. I really enjoyed talking to all of you. Oh, I haven't read Ann Coulter about Khan. All right. Bye, everybody.